The dice hung frozen in his hand as Caesar stood at the river's edge, knowing this throw would change Rome forever. In that moment, at a small, muddy stream called the Rubicon, the fate of the Republic balanced on the edge of a knife. Welcome to Hoodie History. It's great to have you here. I'm Michael, and today I'm exploring a key moment in history, the moment when Julius Caesar made the fateful decision to cross the Rubicon River, igniting a civil war and setting in motion events that would transform Rome from republic to empire. To understand why a man crossing a small river with his army would shake the foundations of the ancient world, we need to understand Caesar's situation in January of 49 BCE. Caesar had spent the previous decade conquering Gaul, adding vast territories to Rome while building unmatched military experience and personal wealth. He'd become extraordinarily popular with ordinary Romans, who celebrated his victories and benefited from his generous public spending. But Caesar had powerful enemies in Rome. The Senate, led by his former ally Pompey the Great, saw Caesar's growing power as a threat to the Republic. They ordered Caesar to disband his armies and return to Rome as a private citizen, where he'd face prosecution and possible execution for actions during his consulship years earlier. For Caesar, the choice was stark: surrender everything he'd built or defy the Senate and march on Rome. The boundary between these two options? A small river in northern Italy called the Rubicon. Caesar and his single legion, the 13th, had been moving south from Gaul, officially still within his legal province. But the Rubicon marked the boundary. Roman law forbade any general from bringing armed troops across this river into Italy proper. To do so was treason, punishable by death. As night fell on January 10th, Caesar reached the river's edge. This wasn't some mighty waterway. Honestly, you'd probably call it a stream if you saw it today. But what it lacked in size, it made up for in significance. Caesar dismounted, walking alone to the riverbank. His officers gathered anxiously behind him. These men had followed him through years of brutal campaigning. If they crossed, they'd be betting their lives on Caesar's success. According to the ancient historian Suetonius, Caesar stood silently for a time, weighing his options. He reportedly turned to his officers and said, "We may still retreat, but if we cross this little bridge, we must fight it out with weapons." Caesar understood the magnitude of what he was contemplating. He wasn't just risking civil war, he was potentially ending the constitutional republic that had stood for nearly 500 years. Legend says Caesar then witnessed an apparition, a figure of unusual size and beauty playing a reed pipe. When soldiers approached, the figure snatched a trumpet from one of them, blew a mighty blast, and crossed the river. Caesar, ever one for dramatic moments, supposedly declared this an omen from the gods themselves. Whether divine inspiration or political calculation, Caesar made his decision. Plutarch tells us he compared himself to a gambler making a crucial throw, famously declaring in Greek, Alea iacta est, the die is cast. With those words, Caesar spurred his horse forward into the icy January waters. Behind him, the 13th Legion followed, approximately 5,000 men crossing a boundary that transformed them instantly from celebrated soldiers to armed traitors. The crossing itself was simple. No battle, no resistance. The significance lay not in military challenge, but in what it represented: open defiance of the Senate and Roman law. News of Caesar's crossing spread rapidly. Panic erupted in Rome. Despite commanding vastly superior numbers, Pompey and the Senate fled the city without a fight, retreating south toward Greece to raise more troops. Caesar and his forces marched on Rome, entering an abandoned city within months. As he famously wrote in his commentaries with characteristic understatement, "I came, I saw, I conquered." Except that in this case, he didn't even have to fight. The consequences of that January crossing rippled outward like a stone thrown into water. What followed was a brutal civil war lasting nearly 5 years. Caesar pursued Pompey across the Mediterranean, defeating him decisively at Pharsalus in 48 BCE. Pompey fled to Egypt, where he was assassinated by officials hoping to curry favor with Caesar. Caesar's eventual victory made him the undisputed master of Rome. He was named dictator, first temporarily, then for 10 years, and finally dictator perpetuo, dictator for life. He instituted significant reforms, including the Julian calendar we still use in modified form today. But not everyone celebrated Caesar's rise. On March 1544 BCE, the famous Ides of March, a group of senators, including his friend Brutus, assassinated Caesar in the Senate House, claiming to be preserving the Republic. Ironically, their action achieved the opposite. Caesar's death triggered another civil war that ended with his adopted son Octavian becoming Augustus, Rome's first emperor. The Republic was gone for good, all because of a decision at a small river, all because Caesar cast his die. Crossing the Rubicon has entered our language as shorthand for any irrevocable decision, a point of no return. But what fascinates me about this moment is how personal it was. Despite all the historical consequences, it came down to one man making a choice. Was Caesar power-hungry or desperate? Ambitious or merely survival-oriented? Did he believe he was saving Rome from corrupt senators, or was he simply saving himself? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Would you have crossed that river knowing what was at stake? And how different might history have been if Caesar had turned back? Thanks for joining me for this key moment in history. If you enjoyed the story, please hit the like button and subscribe to Hoodie History for more fascinating stories from the past. I'm Michael, and I'll see you in the next one.